From Anshei Sphard-Beth Emeth congregation, it's time to take 10 minutes for Torah with Rabbi Joel Finkelstein.
Welcome to our discussion of progressive redemption. When God speaks to Moshe for the second time and speaks to him about the four languages of redemption, known as the Arba Lashon Hagula, we have to understand what is the progression of these languages. They're most famous from the four cups. The Talmud in Psachim says that Lo yivchetu lo mi'arba kosos shel yain, shouldn't give even the poor person less than 4 cups of wine for the Seder night. And Rashi says, well, why 4? And you could say it's just because there are different parts of the Seder that require a cup. But he says no. He quotes the Yerushalmi, the Medrash Rabbah, which says that Keneged Arba Lashon Gula, because there are 4 languages of redemption that are mentioned in this section in the beginning of Parshat Va'era. V'hotzeti, v'tzalti, v'galti, v'lakachti. That God would take us out, He would save us, He would redeem us, and He would take us as His people. These 4 languages are what's known as the 4 languages of redemption. The question is, what's the progression? How does one build on the other so that the redemption unfolds through these 4 languages? So let's look at the different commentaries about it. The Ramban says that V'hotzeti etchem mitachat zivlot Mitzrayim, from the oppressions of Egypt, say we want to get out of the country itself. Getting out of Egypt itself, that's the first stage. And of course, at that point, we're out of Egypt, we'll feel we're not under the yoke of Egypt. The second stage is that to be saved from their work, you see, you could get out of their land, but you're still responsible to them. In fact, there were people in Canaan who were subjugated to the Egyptians. So I want to be saved from their work. I don't want to be a serf to them, even in my own land. Believe that that's what the Ramban means. And then Vigalti would be some Galti Lakachti, perhaps some more lofty, more spiritual type of redemption. The Sforno, Italian commentary, 1500s. So he says, V'hotzeti, I'll take you out of, not of the land, I'll take you out of the Sevil, out of the affliction. And the affliction means that they stop working. When did they stop working? That was the beginning of the redemption. The beginning was when they started having plagues. Then, which would be about a year before, according to Tosfot and Rosh Hashanah, about a year before the Exodus, once they started having plagues, they didn't have any service anymore. They didn't have to work for the Egyptians once there were plagues. Hitzalti etchem, I'll save you. That's when they go out of their environment, when they leave the boundaries of Egypt. Ga'alti, redemption, that was when the Egyptians drowned, because it says Vayosh Hashem bayom hahu, that we were truly saved on that particular day. And lakachti lechem lilam, and then I'll take you as a nation. That's another stage when we went to Mount Sinai. That's when we were chosen. You see, we know we're chosen. We say that God chose us from all the nations. When? So some say the exodus from Egypt was the choosing. You could say no. Mamar HaSinai, when we stood at Mount Sinai, that's when God took us as a nation and forged us as a nationality. There are other commentaries as well. The Malbim, a 19th century Polish commentator, so he says that really there are 3 elements of getting out, 3 stages of redemption. You've got to have the Exodus itself. That's the leaving Egypt. You have to get the Torah, and then you have to conquer the land of Israel. So here we allude to the 5th stage, and the Chassam Sofer says there are actually 6 stages. The 5th stage is that God will bring us into the land. The 6th stage, he says, He will give you an eternal inheritance. So that's the 6th stage. But in any event, what about the 5th stage? So he says, you have 3 of the languages refer to just the Exodus itself. So you have V'hotzeti, that God will take us out of the yoke of the slavery. He will save us when we had the slaying of the firstborn. That's a point at which we didn't have to work for them at all. And then we will redeem us, as we said before in the Ramban, that the splitting of the sea gave us a true redemption. That's the day in which there was redemption. But all that's just the Exodus. The Torah is lakachti etchem li la'am, making you a nation is the Torah. And vaveti, coming to the land of Israel, that's the third element. So there are 5 languages, only 3 stages: Exodus, Torah, and the land of Israel. Rabbi David Tzvi Hoffman was also a 19th century German rabbi, and he said as follows. He says that Avraham was promised that there would be 3 things that we would suffer. We would be strangers in a strange land, we would be afflicted, and we would be slaves. So he says as follows: so that therefore these languages correspond to that. Number 1, you'll be strangers. So he says, no, I'll take you out, so you won't be strangers anymore. You'll be slaves. You'll be saved from their slavery. And there won't be affliction anymore. That's the other element. We'll not be strangers, will not be slaves, will not be afflicted. These are the 3 elements. Perhaps in reverse order. They won't be afflicted. They won't have the affliction. They won't have the slavery. That's the second element. And I'll take you out so you won't be strangers anymore in the land. So the 3 promises of slavery and affliction to Avraham, they're reversed here as they get out of the 3 stages. And finally, he says that lakachti, as the others have mentioned, is a more spiritual element. Getting out of the physical slavery is one thing, but the other is a more spiritual element. I'll take you as my nation. Finally, the Meshech Chochmah says that to be saved is from the affliction of being. What's the affliction? The affliction is they were throwing our babies in the sea. To redeem us, that means to redeem from slavery. And then the other element is the national identity. He says ultimately, what all these redemptions are about, says in Meshech Chochmah, is to take us away from being part of another nation and to have us feel more chosen and more separated from the nations. And in fact, that's why 4 cups were instituted for this, because cups represent Kiddush. Kiddush means we're separated. Havdalah, we're separated from the nations. And wine is something that we don't drink Gentile wine under certain circumstances and particular details. We don't drink Gentile wine. So why? Because wine represents separation. And these 4 languages represent the separation of the Jew from the Gentile. The idea of the beginning of redemption is when a Jew realizes that he has a separate identity, which is there so we can be a separate nation. Of course, don't forget, the purpose of being a separate nation is to bring a light unto the nations and to reconnect with the nations, but on our terms. So we have 4 languages of redemption. We have various steps and stages in our redemption. Are these steps and stages more about getting out of slavery, or are they about achieving a level of cultural independence from those around us? But in any event, the redemption is not something that happens in 1 second. Redemption, God was telling Moshe, is something that takes stages, takes steps, 1 step after the other. We now, at this stage in our history, you can ask yourself, what stage are we at? Do we understand our chosenness and our separateness? Are we still afflicted? Are we still strangers in a strange land? As we redeem ourselves from each one of these stages, hopefully we can move 1 step closer to the ultimate redemption. Thanks for joining us here at the Anshei Sphard-Beth Emeth congregation. Join us each week for a discussion of the Parsha and the various holidays. And thanks to Jason Lefkowitz, our producer. Thank you.
This has been 10 Minutes for Torah with Rabbi Joel Finkelstein. To learn more, visit asb.org.